namaskar. This is Firstpost and you're watching Vantage with me, Palki Sharma. America's deportation drama is intensifying. Donald Trump has fired another shot. He wants to send illegal immigrants to Guantanamo Bay. This is an American base in Cuba, infamous for military tortures. Why does President Trump want to send immigrants there? Has this been done before? And what are the reactions? We'll discuss all of that. Also tell you about the collision of two aircraft in Washington, D.C. One passenger plane and one military helicopter. They crashed into each other in the air. All 67 people on board are feared dead. Also in focus, India has officially joined the AI race. The government of India says that the country's very own version of ChatGPT or DeepSeek will be ready soon. Meanwhile, OpenAI is struggling with bad headlines, copyright lawsuits and former employees speaking out. Is their CEO Sam Altman coming to India? Who are the Indians in Canada's prime ministerial race and can they make it? Why Bangladesh wants to scrap deals with India, how America is trying to revive supersonic aviation with its own version of the Concorde called the Boom Supersonic XB-1, how India's market regulator is cracking down on financial influencers, why Neymar is leaving the Saudi club Al Hilal after scoring the most expensive goal in history, and what is China's artificial sun? Which other countries have it? All this and more coming up. The headlines first. A man who repeatedly burned the Quran in Sweden in 2023 is shot dead. He was an Iraqi refugee. 5 people have been arrested. Sweden's Prime Minister hints at the involvement of a foreign power. The Quran burnings had strained Stockholm's relations with several Muslim nations. Hamas releases 3 Israeli hostages and 5 Thai nationals. Israel slams the chaotic handover and delays the release of Palestinian prisoners. Israel also cuts ties with the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees after accusing it of providing cover for Hamas. America's economic growth was steady in 2024. It was helped by consumer and government spending. The world's biggest economy grew at an annual rate of 2.3% in the fourth quarter, but growth in the Eurozone slowed to a halt in the last quarter, with Germany and France facing economic headwinds and political instability. The Southern African bloc calls an emergency summit on the DR Congo crisis. The meeting will be held tomorrow in Zimbabwe's capital, Harare. The Rwanda-backed M23 rebels have captured most of the regional capital, Goma. South African president calls his Rwandan counterpart to demand a ceasefire. And Indian cricket star Virat Kohli returns to domestic cricket, but the Ranji Trophy match was marred by chaos. Large crowds flocked outside the venue. Few fans were injured in the mayhem. Kohli is playing a Ranji Trophy match after 12 years.
It's a tough place to get out of.
Donald Trump's migrant crackdown continues. We've seen lightning raids, mass arrests, quick deportation, and now a nuclear move. President Donald Trump wants to send some illegal migrants to Guantanamo Bay. I'm sure you've heard of this place. It's the closest thing we have to Azkaban, a prison in the middle of nowhere, a place where laws do not apply. This is where Trump wants to hold illegal migrants. Not all of them, though, just the criminals. Listen in.
Today, I'm also signing an executive order to instruct the Departments of Defense and Homeland Security to begin preparing the 30,000-person migrant facility at Guantanamo Bay. We have 30,000 beds in Guantanamo to detain the worst criminal illegal aliens threatening the American people. Some of them are so bad we don't even trust the countries to hold them because we don't want them coming back, so we're going to send them out to Guantanamo. This will double our capacity immediately, right? And tough. That's a tough place to get out of.
Let's look at the map first. This is where Guantanamo Bay, or Gitmo, is located, on the southeastern tip of Cuba. It was leased to the United States way back in 1903. But Cuba's communist leaders reject American claims now. They say Gitmo is illegally occupied. Irrespective, the US controls this land. After 9/11, the US built a military prison there. Dozens of terror suspects were held in that prison. At its peak, nearly 800 of them. Now, Gitmo had a special purpose for the Americans. It was technically foreign land. American laws did not apply over there, so prisoners were put in cages. They were tortured, waterboarded, and electrocuted. Is that where Trump is sending these migrants? Thankfully, the answer is no. Gitmo also has a migrant detention facility. It is separate from the military prison. And this facility has housed migrants for decades, though very few of them. From 2020 to 2023, only 37 migrants were held at Gitmo. President Trump's plan is to ramp it up. He has ordered the construction of a much larger facility with a capacity of 30,000 beds. Trump says this facility is only for criminal migrants. But still there is some confusion, like how long will the migrants stay there? Will they serve out their sentences, or will they be deported? Trump's new defense secretary says it is not permanent detention. It is more of a temporary transit, a holding area before deportation.
It's folks who maybe are in transit to their home country or a safe third harbor country, and it's taking a little time to move with that processing or the paperwork. Better they be held at a safe location like Guantanamo Bay, which is meant and built for migrants, meant and built to sustain that away from the American people as they are processed properly to where they came from.
Cuba has slammed this move. Their president lashed out on social media. He called it a brutal act by Trump. But let's get a couple of things straight here. These are criminal aliens. No country will tolerate illegal migrants unleashing crime. It has every right to deport them. Having said that, a few questions still remain. One, why Gitmo? Why not a facility on mainland America? Maybe because it wouldn't have the same chilling effect. Everyone knows that Gitmo is notorious. So maybe the goal is deterrence, to make migrants think twice before sneaking into the US. The logic is sound, but the ethics, not so much. It reeks of secrecy and violations. The second question is, who will Trump send to Gitmo? He says criminal illegal migrants will be held there. Until now, that was a pretty clear definition. People convicted of crimes after entering the United States illegally. Those were criminal illegal migrants. But not according to the new Trump administration. They say every illegal migrant is a criminal. Listen to this.
Of the 3,500 arrests ICE has made so far since President Trump came back into office, can you just tell us the numbers? How many have a criminal record versus those who are just in the country illegally?
All of them, because they illegally broke our nation's laws and therefore they are criminals as far as this administration goes. I know the last administration didn't see it that way, so it's a big culture shift in our nation to view someone who breaks our immigration laws as a criminal, but that's exactly what they are.
The US law does not support this. In America, illegal migration is a civil offense. It is not a criminal violation. If you're caught, you are entitled to an immigration hearing. Only after that can you be deported. This is the existing law of the United States of America. If President Donald Trump wants to change that, he is more than free to do it. He's got a majority in both chambers of Congress. So why doesn't he take the legal route for this? Because even some Republicans, even people from his own party, do not like his policies. This is a classic shock and awe tactic. Do as much as you can before the system wakes up. Because Trump's case is very weak. He says there are millions of criminal illegal migrants in the United States, which is simply not true. In the past 40 years, 4 decades, there have been 425,000. And they're not roaming freely. They're serving sentences in American jails. After the sentence, they will be deported. If you add all of this together, one thing becomes quite clear. Trump's immigration plan is not a systematic one. It's a blitzkrieg. Dozens of lawsuits have been filed against it, especially the rapid arrest and deportation of migrants. If a judge blocks it, Trump does not appear to have a plan B. That's how things are at the moment. Let's see how long this crackdown lasts.
Patch 25, get the CRJ in flight. Patch 25, pass bond is CRJ. Lucy 5347, go around, climb maintain 3000, flight ready.
A deadly air disaster has taken place in the United States, right in the middle of the capital, Washington, D.C. Two aircraft collided last night, just about 5 kilometers south of the White House. One was a passenger plane. The second was a U.S. military Sikorsky H-60 helicopter, better known as a Black Hawk. The crash took place just beside the Ronald Reagan Washington National Airport. Take a look at this. There were 64 people on board the passenger jet. It was a PSA Airlines flight from Wichita, Kansas to Washington, D.C. The journey was almost over. The plane was just about to land. That's when disaster struck. Now let's look at how this unfolded step by step. You can see that the signal was lost meters away from the airport. The plane was approaching the Reagan Airport. It was cleared for landing.
Yeah, we can do 33 for Blue 6342. First shift to 342, that's a Wilson Bridge, change to turn for runway 33, clear to land.
That was the air traffic control tower at the airport, giving the flight permission to land. It was making its way to runway 33. This runway at an angle with the Potomac River. But just before the plane landed, ATC sent out an alert. ATC, of course, is the air traffic control. This was their warning.
Patch 25, get the CRJ in flight. Patch 25, pass bond is CRJ.
That message was for a U.S. military Black Hawk helicopter. PAT 25 was the chopper's call sign. The Black Hawk was conducting a nighttime drill. It was seen flying towards the PSA jet. So ATC asked the Black Hawk to pass behind it. This is what showed on the radar of the air traffic controller. You can clearly see the airport runways in the triangle pattern. The passenger plane had the call sign CRJ7. It was turning into the designated runway, which is runway 33, but for some reason the helicopter turned in the same direction. It ended up in front of the passenger plane, leading to a mid-air collision. There was an explosion. Then both aircraft fell into the Potomac River. Emergency services were alerted immediately.
2048, we received an alert from the FAA tower of an aircraft incident involving a commercial aircraft and a helicopter. Our units immediately responded and deployed 3 boats and immediately called for mutual aid resources.
Search and rescue teams were mobilized immediately. Helicopters were providing searchlights from above. Divers were deployed on boats, but they faced an uphill task because the water was near freezing. Remember, this is Washington, D.C., the same place where Donald Trump was inaugurated just 10 days ago. He had to be inaugurated indoors because of the cold. The Potomac River is no exception. It has been oscillating between ice cold and frozen solid for days. And that drastically brings down the possibility of survivors. There were 64 people on board the PSA flight, 60 passengers and 4 crew members. The Black Hawk, the military helicopter, had 3 military personnel on board, so 67 people in total. 2 of them were Russian figure skaters, Evgenia Shishkova and Vadim Naumov. They were a married couple. They won the 1994 World Figure Skating Championship. They were on board the PSA Airlines flight along with other Russian citizens. The Kremlin has confirmed their deaths.
Unfortunately, we see that this sad information is being confirmed. There were also our fellow citizens. Bad news from Washington today. We are sorry, and we express our condolences to the families and relatives of Russian citizens who lost their lives in this mid-air tragedy. For now, there are no plans for high-level contacts.
About 30 bodies have been recovered so far. The operation is still ongoing, but officials say that no survivors are expected. Emergency services are also looking for the black boxes from the aircraft so that they can determine what exactly happened. US President Donald Trump is demanding answers. He put out this post last night questioning the conduct of the helicopter. He believes the collision should have been prevented. But we'll have to wait a while for the official inquiry to finish. We will be tracking this story for you as it unfolds.
We believe that there are at least 6 major developers who will be able to create foundational models in the next 8 to 10 months.
I'm Jin, your personal AI assistant for the journey.
China's DeepSeek has shaken the tech world. It has rattled Silicon Valley and led to carnage on Wall Street. It has brought into focus the global race for AI dominance, and it has led Indians to ask, where are we in this race? Now, the government has joined this conversation. It says India is building its own AI model, one that can compete with the likes of ChatGPT.
We believe that there are at least 6 major developers who will be able to create foundational models in the next 8 to 10 months on the outer limit and 4 to 6 months on a more aggressive estimate.
That was India's IT Minister, Ashwini Vaishnav. He says the government has identified at least 6 developers. They have 4 to 8 months to develop this world-class model, as he put it. The minister did not say who the developers were or what this project will cost. But this is perhaps the most significant declaration of intent from New Delhi. India wants to build an AI model of its own, one that can not only perform like the likes of ChatGPT and DeepSeeks of the world, but also cater to India's cultural diversity, something that is compatible with different Indian languages and may mitigate biases which have been seen in other AI models. That is what India aims to do, but how will it do it? New Delhi is taking a multi-pronged approach. For starters, it is involving private players to procure computer chips, the ones needed to build these AI models. You need special chips for them. Private companies are buying those chips. 10 Indian companies have managed to get almost 19,000 chips. The initial goal was 10,000 chips, to get 10,000 chips to India. But now Indian companies have got almost double the number, 19,000. Now, most of these chips are from NVIDIA, which is an American company, making the most advanced chips in the world. As of today, NVIDIA is the gold standard for AI computing. So 10 Indian companies have got 19,000 NVIDIA chips. Now, the government is planning to consolidate these resources to build a common compute facility. Here, the private sector will use whatever it needs. At the same time, it will contribute to the computing power of the facility. What does that mean? What is a common compute facility? Think of it as a library, which is open to everyone in the community, where anyone can walk in, take a membership at a subsidized rate, and gain access to the books that interest them. The librarian helps you get the books you want. You pay for your membership, and this money is then pooled in to buy more books so that everyone can use them. That's typically how a library works, and that is how the Common Compute Facility will work, with the Government of India as its librarian. And anyone can be a member. Students, startups, researchers, companies, everyone will be able to access this facility. They will be able to use its superior computing power, build useful AI tools, and conduct meaningful research. And what's the fee to use this library of chips? Between $1 to $2 per hour. That's less than 200 Indian rupees. The Indian government is offering access to AI chips for barely a few hundred rupees. Globally, the prices are higher. Access to such chips can cost up to $3 an hour. In India, it is 40% cheaper because the government is subsidizing it. So how soon can India start this facility? The government says 10,000 chips can be deployed almost immediately, which is a pretty good number. Remember, ChatGPT was trained using 10,000 chips too. So India has the adequate computing power, enough to at least start building a model. New Delhi is also taking an inclusive approach with this AI project. It plans to deploy DeepSeek on Indian servers. That's the Chinese AI model, DeepSeek. It will now be available on Indian servers. Does this not pose a privacy risk? DeepSeek is, after all, a Chinese model. There are data risks associated with it. So will this move leak India's data to China? Experts say that will not happen. The makers of DeepSeek have released its code, so it is open source and open weight, meaning anyone can access and replicate it, and anyone can build on it. It's a bit like Lego. So India wants to use this base to build a different AI model, a model tailored to Indian needs without compromising India's data security. Basically, an Indian version of DeepSeek. Long story short, India is serious about AI development. It has adopted a comprehensive approach. The government is investing resources and funding key projects. It is engaging with the private sector. It is also studying existing models to learn and adapt. India's AI efforts are off to a good start, but it still has a long, long road ahead. The past few weeks have made one thing quite clear. No single player controls artificial intelligence. For all of America's advancements, there is no monopoly. And India is well positioned to establish itself in this space. Meanwhile, OpenAI remains in news for all the wrong reasons. It's been a wild fortnight for this company, almost like a tech soap opera with fewer tears and more code. First, OpenAI jumped into a $500 billion venture, a project called Stargate. Then, out of nowhere, a Chinese AI model came swinging, a model called DeepSeek. It smashed OpenAI's dominance. In a plot twist, OpenAI CEO praised the competitor. Sam Altman is the CEO. He called DeepSeek impressive. It's like Ronaldo saying Messi is pretty good. But just when it was turning all wholesome, OpenAI pulled a fast one. They began accusing DeepSeek of copying their tech. They say the Chinese company used OpenAI's work to train DeepSeek models. OpenAI says it has the evidence. Now, this so-called evidence is not public yet, so we'll have to take their word for it, but it's hard to miss the irony here. OpenAI is having a meltdown, and why? Because someone may have done what they have been doing for years. This is a company that has been training on copyrighted material with no shame. Books, news articles, music, YouTube videos, even that high school essay that you wrote on Shakespeare. OpenAI has spared nothing to train its models. It has literally been ripping off other people's work to get ahead. So what's the fuss about now? And this is not even a secret. OpenAI's leadership has talked about it. Sam Altman himself has acknowledged it. So why are they playing the victim now? They should know the copy-paste button works both ways. And while OpenAI is crying foul, they're literally in the middle of a copyright lawsuit here in India. The case began last year. It was filed by news agency ANI. They accused OpenAI of improperly using copyrighted content. You know, like scraping and reproducing material from news websites without permission. Now, several Indian media giants have joined the case, including companies like Network 18 and other digital publishers. The idea is to hold OpenAI accountable. And what's the response? Well, OpenAI wants to block this bid. Some reports even suggest that Sam Altman himself is planning a visit to India. The last time he did this was in 2023. There were no legal headaches then, but this time it's a whole different story. And we can see why. India is ChatGPT's second biggest market after the United States. It cannot afford to lose this market. So between lawsuits and a new competitor, OpenAI was barely catching its breath when another bombshell dropped, this time from a former employee, a former OpenAI safety researcher. He has gone public. His name is Steven Adler. He left OpenAI last November. He called it a wild ride. Now he says OpenAI and other companies are taking a very risky gamble, especially with artificial intelligence, artificial general intelligence. That's the type of AI that could match or exceed human intellect in every aspect. Remember all those sci-fi movies with a villain robot? This is that stage, or at least that's what we are told. So it's a warning that AI could be moving too fast, and the consequences may be far more serious than we imagine. And that's the real question. Is OpenAI pushing technology forward, or is it pushing us over a cliff? This company wants to lead the AI revolution, yet it is fending off lawsuits, battling new competitors, and now even its own former employees are sounding the alarm. OpenAI may want to control the future, but right now it can barely control the headlines. To Canada now, where the political landscape is shifting in a big way. After nearly a decade in power, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is stepping down, which leaves a major question. Who will take over? The Liberal Party, which is Trudeau's party, is scrambling to find a new leader. And there are a few Indians in the mix, the likes of Ruby Dhalla, Chandra Arya and Anita Anand. Will one of them make it to the top? We don't know yet, but with a potential no-confidence vote looming, their job might not last long. Our next report tells you more.
Justin Trudeau is on his way out. After 9 years, he's stepping down as Prime Minister. Which means one big question: who takes over? Canada's Liberal Party needs a new leader fast. The decision comes March 9th, and that person will be the Prime Minister. But for how long? The Conservatives want an election. Parliament reconvenes in March. A no-confidence vote could bring the government crashing down. So who's willing to take this short, high-stakes job? Several names are already in the mix. But a few Indian ones are making the noise. The first is Ruby Dhalla. She was born to Punjabi immigrants in Winnipeg. At the age of 10, she wrote a letter to then Indian Prime Minister Indira Gandhi. It was about Operation Blue Star, and Gandhi even personally replied to her. In 1993, she took part in the India-Canada beauty pageant. She even acted in a Hindi movie before becoming a chiropractor. Soon after, she ventured into politics. From 2004 to 2011, Dhalla served as a Member of Parliament for the Brampton-Springdale constituency. She made history with her tenure, and now she hopes to make history again by becoming the first Indian origin woman to become the Canadian Prime Minister. And what's on Dhalla's agenda? She's already made her key campaign promise. She wants to deport illegal immigrants and clamp down on human traffickers.
There are over 500,000 illegal immigrants in Canada. This is unacceptable. As the daughter of immigrant parents, I know firsthand that immigrants have helped build our great country. But we must clamp down on human trafficking and those that are here illegally. As your Prime Minister, I promise you, I will deport every illegal immigrant in Canada. Canada's comeback starts now.
But she's not the only Indian origin politician in the race. Meet Chandra Arya. He was born in the Indian state of Karnataka. In 2006, Chandra immigrated to Canada. He won federal elections in 2015 and 2019 and went viral in 2022 for speaking Kannada in the House of Commons. Now, he wants to be Prime Minister. His campaign promises include making Canada a sovereign republic, raising the retirement age and introducing a citizenship-based tax system. But his campaign hit controversy when he dismissed the importance of the French language, a key requirement for the job. And that seems to have cost him. He has been barred for participating in the race by the Liberal Party. Chandra Arya has called out this decision, raising questions about the legitimacy of the race. The other big name making news? Anita Anand. She was born in Kentville, Nova Scotia. Both her parents are physicians. She started as a law professor Minister of Public Services and Procurement, where she was praised for securing COVID vaccines. In 2021, she became Canada's Defence Minister. Since 2024, she's led the Transport Ministry. Anand was a top contender for Liberal leader, but she's out as well. She's staying in her current role, and soon she'll be moving on from politics altogether. So Anita Anand is out, Chandra Arya is barred, while Ruby Dhalla is still in the race. The Liberal Party's leadership contest remains wide open. But is this a fresh start for the Liberals, or just a temporary hold before an election shakes everything up? One thing's for sure, Canadian politics is about to get very interesting.
Let's turn to Bangladesh now, which is searching for new ways to antagonize India. They are rewriting history, stirring trouble at the border, cozying up to Pakistan, and now questioning bilateral agreements. Over the years, Delhi and Dhaka have signed dozens of deals, some of them under Sheikh Hasina, but the Yunus regime is questioning those deals. They say the deals are uneven, meaning they benefit India more than Bangladesh. So their solution? To renegotiate or scrap those deals. That is what Bangladesh's Home Minister is proposing. His name is Jahangir Alam Chaudhry. His main concern is the border. We saw an example of that earlier this month. Dhaka claimed that India was illegally fencing the international border. They blamed it on unfair border deals struck by Sheikh Hasina. So Dhaka wants it reviewed. Next month, a key meeting is scheduled in New Delhi. Chiefs of the two border forces will be holding talks. Dhaka plans to bring a list of complaints. 1, that India is illegally building things near the border. 2, that India is shooting Bangladeshis at the border. And 3, that drugs are being smuggled from India to Bangladesh. And what is New Delhi's response to this? Well, India has always emphasized on border security, on making the border crime-free. This month, India also summoned Dhaka's envoy. The Indian side explained its position to the diplomat. Let me quote the Indian statement. India conveyed its expectation that all earlier understandings will be implemented by Bangladesh and that there will be a cooperative approach to combating cross-border crimes. So India expects Dhaka to honor past deals. And that's how politics works. Regimes and leaders may come and go, but countries must honor their commitments. If not, what is the point of these deals? Of course, Dhaka's issue is not just the terms of these agreements. It is also political. The Yunus regime has an axe to grind. They feel India propped up Sheikh Hasina's government, so now they want revenge. Look at all their recent moves. Last week, Bangladesh hosted a team of Pakistani spies, 4 ISI officers. ISI is the Inter-Services Intelligence. Before that, Bangladeshi military officers traveled to Pakistan. They met all 3 service chiefs there. The goal here is quite clear, to forge a military partnership with Pakistan, with a country that unleashed genocide on them. Even non-military ties are growing. Pakistan and Bangladesh have started a direct maritime link, so ships can sail directly between both the countries, no pit stops necessary. They're also starting direct flights. Clearly, Dhaka wants a close partnership with Islamabad. Until recently, they also wanted one with the United States. Mohammad Yunus was very close to Joe Biden, but Donald Trump is not a big fan. He called out Dhaka's Hindu abuses last year, but Yunus has more cards to play. Yesterday, he hosted Alex Soros in Dhaka, the son of George Soros. You may have heard of this figure. George Soros is an American billionaire. He funds civil society groups across the world. In India, his role has come under scrutiny. Indian ministers have accused him of meddling in domestic affairs. Yet, Mohammad Yunus was happy to host him. He may not get the same support as he got from Joe Biden, but he's got enough friends in Washington. If you combine all of this, one thing becomes clear. Dhaka is not just diversifying its options, it is actively antagonizing India. Again, the question is, how can New Delhi respond? Last year, the Indian Foreign Secretary visited Dhaka. He called for more cooperation and communication, so clearly India wants things to work out. But we need to be prepared for all eventualities. An unfavorable regime in Dhaka is bad news for India. Illegal migration could speed up, weapons could seep into the northeast, and Pakistan could gain a foothold again. So now is the time to be vigilant. A 2-hour flight from New York to London. For decades now, this has been the promise of the supersonic airline industry. Flights that can travel faster than the speed of sound. But so far, only one aircraft has been able to do this. I'm talking about the Concorde. It was jointly built by the UK and France some 55 years ago, but it was too costly and too noisy. Apparently, when it broke the sound barrier, it also broke windows. So the aircraft was grounded. Since then, the supersonic space has seen slow progress. Now, decades later, supersonic aviation is taking off the ground again. Enter Boom Supersonic XB-1. It has taken a test flight in the United States, it has broken the sound barrier, and it has become the world's first independently developed supersonic jet. Here is a report.
The Concorde jet. It was a technological marvel of the late 1900s, a great source of pride for the UK and France, whose aerospace companies built it jointly. Because the Concorde is the only supersonic airliner that ever flew, it still holds the record for the fastest transatlantic crossing by a passenger aircraft. It flew from New York to London in 2 hours 52 minutes and 59 seconds. A subsonic flight usually takes about 8 hours to cover the same distance. At the time, 20 Concordes were built. Only 14 were used for passenger service. But the aircraft were noisy and expensive. So in 2003, they were retired. And since then, the remaining aircraft have gathered dust at museums. For something that's faster than the speed of sound, the progress in supersonic travel has been slow. But now, a major milestone holds promise. 55 years after the Concorde took off, Boom Supersonic XB-1 has completed its first supersonic flight.
Control your go for Excel to Mach 1.1.
Go for Excel, Kestrel Gate.
Boom is an American company and it wants to build the world's fastest airliner. So this week, its XB-1 aircraft took its test flight in California. It flew at about 35,000 feet and after about 12 minutes in the air, the jet broke the sound barrier. It accelerated to Mach 1.122 or 1,207 kilometers per hour, or about 10% faster than the speed of sound, and created history. This is the first time an independently developed jet has broken the sound barrier. And it's quite the milestone. And it could be America's answer to the European Concorde, because it's even better. You see, the Concorde was built in wind tunnels. Every iteration of the model took millions of dollars and many months, so many designs couldn't be tested. Technology has advanced by leaps and bounds since then, from aerodynamics to materials to propulsion. The XB-1 is made almost entirely from carbon fiber composites. They are strong but lightweight at the same time. And the XB-1 doesn't need a wind tunnel. Its aerodynamic design was made using computational fluid dynamics. Think of it as a digital wind tunnel where engineers can run the equivalent of hundreds of wind tunnel tests overnight in a simulation. It takes a fraction of the cost. Now, while both the Concorde and XB-1 have a long nose which interrupts the pilot's view, the Boom aircraft comes with an augmented reality vision system. It enables runway visibility for the pilots. Boom Supersonic wants this digital engineering win to go commercial. It is a hotly anticipated jet. It already has 130 orders from American Airlines, United Airlines, and Japan Airlines. By the end of the decade, it's expected to carry anywhere from 64 to 80 passengers at Mach 1.7. That's about twice the speed of today's subsonic airliners. And this could mean the travelers would fly anywhere in the world within 4 hours for about $100. So, can the supersonic airline industry get off the ground? Well, the idea has already taken flight.
It's the age of the influencers. People seem to trust them more than experts, whether it's for their health or their looks or their finances. Though that last one is facing pushback, I'm talking about financial influencers, aka finfluencers. These are people who talk about financial matters, like how much money should you save, where should you invest, and which stocks should you buy. These finfluencers are among the most popular on the internet, but India's market regulator is cracking down on them. That's SEBI, the Securities and Exchange Board of India. Starting in 2023, SEBI cracked down on these finfluencers. Many of them were peddling fake advice. Some were even paid to talk up certain stocks. So SEBI cracked the whip. It asked these financial influencers to register themselves. But one loophole still remained, the so-called educational finfluencers. These are people who teach you about the stock market. At least that's what they claim. In reality, this teaching is just a facade. They sneak in financial advice while giving these so-called lessons. They also use live market prices in their classes, basically tips disguised as lessons. Well, not anymore. SEBI has imposed new rules on these educational influencers or finfluencers. You cannot use live market prices anymore. You can only use prices from at least 3 months ago. Now, the idea is clear. If your goal is education, any price would do. It's the theory that matters, not the price. But if your goal is financial advice, then old prices will not do. They are irrelevant to investors. This is expected to choke financial influencers. They thrive on live market analysis. Without that, they're expected to lose followers. And it doesn't end there. SEBI is also putting registered entities on notice, like mutual funds or brokerage firms. They must not be associated with such illegal influencers. No advertisements, no stock advice, no links of any kind. If such links emerge, then they will face strict action, maybe fines or even suspension. So the message from the Indian regulator is clear: keep it clean. If you want to give financial advice, register yourself. If you want to educate, stick to that. And this crackdown is very important in a country like India. Our financial literacy is just 23%. Yet interest in the stock market is booming. Between 2019 and 2023, nearly 120 million new investors joined. That's almost Japan's entire population. We need to protect these investors. We need to make sure that they get the right advice because, frankly, all finfluencers cannot be trusted. Let me show you a recent report. It looked at stocks recommended by financial influencers. From 2018 to 2022, 70% of these stocks underperformed. Even worse is derivative advice. Now, derivatives is a complicated form of trading. Just know that it's more speculative and more risky. A lot of Indians have been venturing into this field, and it is not going well for them. Indian traders lost 1.8 trillion rupees in the last 3 years. That's $21 billion lost to derivative trading. Plus, the markets seem to be on a downward slide. Both Nifty and Sensex dropped 1% on Monday. Investors lost nearly 10 lakh crore rupees, which is $115 billion US. This sort of a downturn has twin effects. First, it erodes hard-earned savings. And second, it erodes confidence in the markets, making future investments unlikely. If you add scamming finfluencers to this mix, it becomes even more dangerous. So SEBI has taken a move in the right direction. The next step is implementation, enforcing the rules and punishing the violators. Our next story is from the world of football, the real kind, not American. Today we bring you a tale of homecoming after possibly the worst football transfer in history. It is the story of Neymar Jr., one of the modern icons of the game, touted to become the next legend from Brazil. But an injury-plagued spell in Saudi Arabia threatened to derail all that potential. So Neymar has decided to return to his roots. Saying sayonara to Saudi, he's heading back to where it all began, his Brazilian boyhood club, Santos. But as he bids farewell to the Saudi champions Al Hilal, he leaves them with an unenviable record, the most expensive goal in football history. Here's our report.
Neymar, the mercurial Brazilian forward, the country's leading goal scorer of all time. Love him or hate him, Neymar's skills, trickery and eye for goal are legendary, as are his dubious dives and tear-laden theatrics, but that's a story for another time. Today's tale is about his grand homecoming, a return to his roots. Neymar da Silva Santos Jr., that's his full name, and as you can see, Santos is part of it. That is where it all began for Neymar, Santos FC. A legendary Brazilian football club, which has recently fallen on hard times. Santos was founded in 1912, over 112 years ago, and in 2023 it was relegated for the first time in its history. Santos made a quick comeback, topping the Brazilian second tier and securing a promotion last season, but it's still on the path to making a comeback. So who better to help them than the prodigal son hoping for his own reset? Neymar is on his way home, back to his boyhood club after 12 years. Neymar is ditching Saudi Pro League champions Al Hilal. They agreed to terminate their contract by mutual consent. That is what Al Hilal put up on Tuesday anyway. Neymar put up a respectful message as well, thanking Al Hilal fans for their support. He also addressed the elephant in the room, saying he wished that they had enjoyed better times on the pitch. Neymar joined Al Hilal in August 2023. He moved after spending 6 seasons with the French champions Paris Saint-Germain. PSG had bought Neymar from Barcelona in 2017 for a world record transfer fee of 222 million euros. That's about 231 million USD at today's exchange rates. Neymar was lethal for Barca. He was mesmerizing for PSG. And Saudi Arabia wanted that magic too. They paid 90 million euros for Neymar in 2023, about $94 million. It was a large drop in value, but Neymar was getting on in the years. He was already 31. That's usually past the peak for a forward. So PSG didn't mind giving the deep discount. But it's not like Al Hilal got a great deal. While the transfer fee seemed reasonable, the personal terms were luxurious. Neymar was reportedly earning 150 million euros a year at Al Hilal, $156 million a year, or about $3 million every single week. Saudi Arabia has the money, that wasn't an issue, but everyone wants a bang for their buck. Sadly for Al Hilal, their record signing turned out to be a terrible investment. Neymar began well enough, getting an assist on his debut, and his first goal a few days later. But then it all went downhill. Neymar received a brutal injury while on international duty. He tore his anterior cruciate ligament, and this sidelined him for over a year. He made his return last October, but only played 2 matches before announcing his departure. Overall, Neymar scored just 1 goal for Al Hilal in about 18 months. He was unavailable most of the time due to his injury. But that doesn't mean his wages stopped flowing. Reports say that Neymar raked in about $200 million in those 18 months. When you add that to the transfer fee, it means Al Hilal paid more than $300 million for 1 solitary goal. That has to be the worst transfer in football history. It's no surprise that Al Hilal agreed to terminate Neymar's contract. But Saudi's loss is Santos's gain. Neymar is now done chasing big money. He has reportedly taken a 99% pay cut. He's going to Santos to rediscover his form and get in shape ahead of the 2026 FIFA World Cup. The Santos contract is for 6 months. Neymar is hoping he gets back to full fitness soon, and after that, who knows? Reports say he's eyeing a European return as well. Will Neymar really be able to get back to his best? Will he mesmerize fans with his antics once again? Or will it be a case of too little, too late?
Ever since we first looked up at the skies, we have asked a question. How does the sun shine for so long? Why hasn't it stopped? How has it not burned through the fuel? It wasn't until the 1900s that we found the answer. Scientists said the sun is filled with lots of elements. They're quite light and busy. They're constantly fusing. They're slamming together and making heavier elements, and this process creates energy, vast amounts of it. And this fuels the stars. It keeps the sun alive. And this means that our sun has its own personal store of energy. It is inexhaustible. So obviously, this is what humans asked next. What if this energy could be tapped? Even better, what if we could replicate this store of energy? Better still, what if we could create a working star here on Earth? Ambitious, right? Well, it would have sounded flat out impossible if we weren't already inching closer to it. I'm talking about nuclear fusion. It falls in the same league as 6G internet and advanced AI. Nuclear fusion is the next big thing in global tech, and it promises the sun. Well, an artificial sun. It is basically a device, a reactor, and it can replicate the sun's insides. It can create nuclear fusion. China has one, an artificial sun reactor. It is a machine with a funny name and a funny shape. It is called tokamak, and it looks like a giant metal donut. It uses extreme heat and pressure to create nuclear fusion. And this time, when the machine zapped to life, it fused atoms and set a new world record. Well, the reactor broke its own record. In 2023, it burned at 100 million degrees Celsius for 403 seconds. Think 70,000 ovens running for about 7 minutes together. That's how hot the reactor got. But this time it doubled this output. The reactor burned at 100 million degrees Celsius for an unprecedented 1,066 seconds, which is 17 minutes and 46 seconds. And this is a major milestone. You see, nuclear fusion is called the holy grail of energy. It can provide limitless energy. It can make our rockets faster. It can boost cancer research. It can power electric grids. And it comes with efficiency we cannot even fathom. Fusion releases 4 million times more energy than burning coal, oil, or gas. But there is no greenhouse emission. There is no radioactive waste. So long story short, nuclear fusion is the answer to our energy problems. It is also our climate change solution. But there's a catch. It is extremely hard to achieve. You need to heat a puff of gas, heat it to unimaginable temperatures, hold on to this heat, do it for long enough, do it with high enough pressure, hold it steady, make sure your machine survives the pummeling, but make sure that it has the energy to work. It is all very tricky. So progress is slow, but scientists have kept at it. For 70 years now, a few nations have been working on this, like the US, France, Russia, South Korea, Japan, India, and China. Then there are the private players. Fusion startups are cropping up all over the world. Big names and investors like Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, and Vinod Khosla are funding them. Hundreds of billions of dollars are at stake here. Countries are racing to make fusion history. But why are they doing it? To save us from climate change? To bring electricity to our homes? Of course not. It is the usual. They're doing it to make more money. Mastering fusion promises wealth and influence to whichever nation tames it first. The US was among the world's first to make a move in this futuristic space, but now, if there is a big fish in the fusion pond, it is China. Beijing is pouring the big bucks into creating the sun. About $1.5 billion every year for years now. By comparison, the United States spends about $800 million. And while the US designs cutting-edge tokamaks, China makes them faster and better by copying these American blueprints. Basically, what we are seeing play out with artificial intelligence is silently also happening with nuclear fusion. Beijing is beating Washington at its own game, while other nations are scrambling to catch up. Over the past decade, China's fusion patents have surged. It has more patents than any other country. It has broken one record after another, so credit where it's due. But this comes with growing unease. Because in the future, whoever controls fusion energy will control the world, and no one wants it to be China, except China. The AI race has entered a new chapter, a battle of copyright, or rather copy-paste. OpenAI is accusing DeepSeek of stealing its data. Journalists are accusing OpenAI of stealing their data. Meanwhile, podcasters are asking, what is data? It's funny how one industry is just shaking up the stock market, so much so that even serious players are joking about it now. Like Germany's Deutsche Bank. They have dispatched a report to all their clients, and within that report are memes about DeepSeek. That is right. Europe's second largest bank has turned into a memer. It really sums up our world. Now it's time for Vantage Shots, images that tell the story. Celebrations break out in Tel Aviv's hostage square after Hamas releases Israeli hostages. Two strategic Russian bombers conduct an 8-hour-long mission over the Sea of Japan and the Arctic Ocean. And Vietnam celebrates the Lunar New Year with fireworks. Finally, we are taking you back in history. On this day in 1948, Mahatma Gandhi was assassinated. Nathuram Godse shot the father of the nation while he was walking to a prayer meeting in Delhi. A trial court sentenced Godse to death a year later. We're leaving you with that. Thank you for watching. We'll see you tomorrow. We're calling the show Vantage. We hope you like what we put together for you. And now to one touted as the minimum two-way defense. From that video, India's neighbors were the first to send the special edition of Vantage live from the White House throughout this week. Yes, Hindu Mandir in we're on our way to Tel Aviv. City measure, but it's also the perfect way to drive.
I don't think that
Prime Minister of Bhutan, Sherin Tagwe. Welcome to
60% of the world's
office. Prime Minister Modi did the iron.
We were actually.
How are you doing? How do you like? It's been 1 year since that meeting. Iron bars separate you from the outside. Out the vote effort. Trump had, it says, and at $4.3 trillion. 4.3 300 billion by 2030. That's what we need to tackle climate change.